In this video, I'm going to talk about what I like and don't like about the BYD Atto 3 after driving the car for more than 1,200 kilometers over the course of 9 days. There are a lot of things that I like about the car. There are some surprising things, to be frank, that I also don't like about it. And even though I love the BYD Atto 3 and I'm a big fan of BYD in general, I wouldn't buy this car. So I'm going to talk about why that's the case, what I like, what I don't like, what I found surprising, and what I would buy instead. So let's jump straight into it. All right, first, let's talk about the good things. And there are a lot of good things about this car. Firstly, it just looks elegant, it looks stylish, it's very comfortable, it feels like it's made from just nice, high quality material, and it's just a pleasure to drive. For the most part, there are a few drawbacks, I'll talk about those. But it's mostly just a really, really enjoyable experience, and that's what I want. I'm not really a mechanic. I don't really know much about cars in general, but I can tell you after driving it for more than a week, more than 1,200 kilometers, it was just a pleasurable experience. The interior, the exterior, it all looks great. The range is sufficient and surprising. In fact, one of my biggest hesitations before renting the BYD Atto 3 was the potential range and the potential recharging options. But that actually was a pleasant surprise. That's specific to Western Australia, but I imagine if it's okay in WA already, it's only gonna get better. And other places around the world, the recharging options are just gonna get better and better and better over time, but it's already decent, it's already good enough. But the car, the acceleration is incredible, it's quiet, the handling is great, and yeah, just the onboard systems, like the intelligent cruise control. That was a big surprise to me. I was not expecting that. The adaptive cruise control as well is good. In fact, I like the adaptive cruise control system more than I like the intelligent cruise control system. I've talked about all of that previously in another video, so if you're interested, you can check out that video if you're looking for more information about exactly how the intelligent cruise control or autopilot mode works, and also how the adaptive cruise control system works as well. It's really, really interesting. So in general, I mean, what more do you need to know? The car is a pleasure to drive. It's got great acceleration. It's quiet. It handles well. It looks nice. It's just a nice experience. But let's talk about some of the things that I was kind of expecting or thinking would be bad, and they were, and a few things that were also surprising as well. Okay. Things that I did not love so much about the car, and all of these things combined are the reason why I would not buy an Atto 3. However, this is just my personal opinion, and your situation might be different. So just because I wouldn't buy an Atto 3, that doesn't mean that maybe it's not a great car for you. It's gonna be up to you entirely. But the first thing I wanted to mention is that the car is, at least in my opinion, for my use case, it's too big. It's just bigger than I would like. And okay, it's fine if you're driving in like a remote area, like we were for most of the time that we were driving the car. We were driving in a mostly rural area, out of big cities where parking wasn't a problem. And okay, it's fine. But in general, I would think that personally, I'd prefer a smaller car so that parking is easier, getting around smaller streets, maybe in a city setting would be easier as well. So that's the big one for me. It's just too big for my preference. Related to that is poor visibility, specifically out, if you're trying to use your peripheral vision when you're going to change lanes or when you're reversing or something like that, looking out, either behind you to the left or behind you to the right, the visibility there is just not great. And that's something that also kind of surprised me, that I found to be a little bit annoying, and another reason why I wouldn't buy the Atto 3, despite the fact that I really enjoyed driving it. Okay, this is something that I learned after driving the car for a few days, and we had it for about 9 days in total. But one thing I really don't like about it, and this is probably not specific to the Atto 3, and this is a software thing, so they could change this, and when I say they, I mean BYD, they could change this anytime they want, but I found it really annoying when we were in reverse gear. Let's say we're reversing out of a driveway. If the car's in reverse, even if I stopped, had my foot firmly on the brake, you can't do anything with the center console. Like for example, there were plenty of times where we'd be reversing a little bit and okay, the cameras are on the center console so you can see what's behind you. That's helpful, but I would like the choice to be able to do other things with the center console. And I understand why BYD have prioritized If you're in reverse, it shows you the rear cameras because, hey, they don't want you to bang into something behind the car, all right? I understand that. But I think I would prefer if maybe when your foot is on the brake pedal or maybe the handbrake is on, then allow me to do something with the center console. For example, reversing, put my foot on the brake because I want to know, okay, which way do I need to go out of the driveway? Do I need to turn left or do I turn right? I want to check the navigation. You can't do it. It's impossible. I found that to be really annoying. Again, that's a software thing. They could easily patch that, but that's something that was kind of surprising. Okay, this is a pretty minor thing and I'm nitpicking, but since we're talking about the negatives, let's talk about it. I found that when we're driving on a freeway or an expressway, if we went under an overhead bridge during the day, the center console would dim a lot. And okay, no big deal. It dims for 5 seconds and then it comes back to life. But I found that to be a little bit annoying. Again, it's a very, very small thing. We are nitpicking here. But I guess what that means is the car kind of detected that the light was low. Maybe we're coming into night, so they dimmed everything. No big deal. But I just found it to be pretty surprising that even that like half a second in the time that it takes to go under a bridge, or even less than half a second, that lower light for that microsecond was enough to trigger the center console to dim. Again, kind of nitpicking here, but hey, I noticed it. I've talked about in other videos how I'm not a fan of the lane keep assist system. In fact, when I first noticed it, I didn't even have any idea what it was. I had to drive the car for a while to figure out what was actually going on. I don't like it. I find it annoying. If you're interested in learning more about that lane keep assist functionality and why I don't like it, I've also talked about that one in another video. So I'm not going to go into it in too much detail right here, other than to say, personally, I don't like it. And when I'm driving, I prefer to have that turned off. Although, as I've also talked about in other videos, if you want to use the ICC, the Intelligent Cruise Control System, the so-called autopilot, by the way, it's not really a great autopilot, but if you want to use that ICC system, you don't have a choice. You must use the lane keep assist system. I've already covered that, but I just find that whole thing to be annoying with the spurious warnings, the incorrect warnings, or when the ICC system is engaged, it will detect that it's doing a bad job of keeping the center of the lane, but then it will also fail to correct itself. And sometimes it gets so bad that it's getting like to the edge of the lane and it'll tell you, hey, I'm doing a really bad job here. By the way, this is when the IC system is engaged, and then it will just fail. It will completely fail. And honestly, I think this is a safety concern. It really is a safety concern. Again, this is a software thing. I'm sure over time, BYD will make improvements and this will eventually get better. But I don't like the lane keep assist functionality. I'm also not very confident in just the safety overall of the ICC system. I like the adaptive cruise control system much more than the ICC, the autopilot system. But hey, that's another negative. And this list is getting pretty long. This is longer than I thought. By the way, all of these negatives, they don't make up for or overwhelm the positives about the car. Despite what I'm mentioning as negatives, and most of these are just my opinion, I still think on balance the car is great, though I wouldn't buy it, but I would certainly hire the car again, and I intend to pretty soon. But another negative is, let's say, optimistic range guidance. When the car battery is fully charged, you look at the range available and you think, okay, great, I can drive X number of kilometers or miles. And I would say that's optimistic, and you should probably discount the advertised range, what it's telling you it could do. You should probably discount that by a factor of about 1/3, just to be on the safe side when planning your stops, when planning your recharging. Because if you don't, and if you look at it and you think, okay, great, I can drive, let's say 400 kilometers, right? And you say, oh, that's okay because there's a charging station available and it's 380 kilometers down the road. Don't try that. I think you're really asking for trouble. Always be conservative. And even with just the most conservative, gentle settings for acceleration and for braking, I'm not using sports mode here and I'm not driving it like a lunatic. I'm always just going the speed limit, accelerating just very, very gently. It still was overly optimistic. So keep that in mind. If you're thinking about accelerating more quickly, like you really want to have some fun with the car, up to you. Or if you want to use the sports acceleration mode, which is kind of the same thing, I would suggest you're probably going to have to discount the range that it's telling you that you could do by even more than 30%, just to be on the safe side there. But that's another negative. The last negative point that I wanted to mention here is the navigational system. It's not great. Sometimes it would be taking us from point A to point B, and okay, it doesn't know about roadworks that are happening today. Okay, fine. But there are other things as well. Like maybe a road might have been changed to a dead end or something changed with that road some time ago, and the BYD Atto 3 navigational system obviously didn't know about it, and it would take us some way to go from point A to point B, and we'll just get to a dead end or a road that we couldn't turn right on where it thinks we need to turn right. And it's like, actually, sorry, we can't turn right here, BYD. We need to turn left and then figure out another way. So I would say the navigational system in general, not perfect, but it's pretty good. If you're struggling to keep track of everything, don't worry about it, because I can send you my notes right here on my screen. I've listed everything, all the good points, all the bad things, everything that I think about the car. I'll send you all of my notes and other notes about BYD from other videos. If you click on the first link in the video description down below, I'll send everything straight to you. Okay, enough of the negatives. Let's talk about a couple of things that were surprising that I really enjoyed. And the first of which is keyless entry. And I'll admit that I didn't really discover this myself. When I was driving the car over those 9 days or so, I spent a lot of time going down rabbit's holes, looking at other YouTube videos and just searching for as much information as I could find about the BYD Atto 3. And I think I found it on someone else's YouTube video, how to do the keyless entry. And it's pretty cool, something I wasn't prepared for, but I actually really, really like that. Another surprising thing that I enjoyed, despite just talking about how I have my concerns about the safety of the system, is the intelligent cruise control system, the ICC system, aka autopilot, even though it's not really a great autopilot, and you should certainly not depend on it and just fall asleep and think it's going to get you safely to your destination. That's a really, really bad idea. But look, the whole thing just really surprised me. I was not expecting it. And I'll be honest, when I jumped into the car to start driving it on the first day, I didn't really do a whole lot of research beforehand, and I didn't really know to expect what was going to happen there. And when we first engaged the intelligent cruise control system, when we're driving down a freeway, expressway, I kind of felt the haptics, like the feedback on the steering wheel, and I didn't know what was happening. I thought for a moment that the car was fighting with me. Actually, what I later realized is that it was the intelligent cruise control system taking care of if the road was turning to the left, it would take care of that gentle left turn as well. So despite what I've said about the safety concerns and why you shouldn't trust that intelligent cruise control system entirely, it was a huge surprise to me that that even existed. And overall, look, it does a pretty good job most of the time. And I found that to be like just a massive surprise that I really, really enjoyed. However, as mentioned, don't put your life in it. Don't trust it blindly. If you're going to use it, and you should because it's fun and it's also helpful, make sure that you're always paying attention to what mode it's using, what's happening, and always be ready to take over if you need to. All right, so I've talked about some of the things that I like and don't like about the Atto 3, and I mentioned that I wouldn't buy the car. I would certainly rent the car again, and we plan to soon, but what would I buy instead? Personally, my dream car is the BYD Dolphin. I love BYDs. I'm definitely a big fan of BYD in general. And I just like the Dolphin, despite the fact that I've never driven one yet. I would like to get my hands on one soon, hopefully. And look, it's my dream to one day get that car. I don't want a Lamborghini. I don't really care about a Ferrari. My dream car is a BYD Dolphin. I'm on a mission to try and get my family into a BYD Dolphin, but so far my conversations about that with my wife, not going well. Hopefully one day I can convince her that we need to get a BYD Dolphin. But the reason I prefer the Dolphin over the Atto 3, and again, I haven't driven it. I've only driven the Atto 3 at this point. But I look at the Dolphin and I think it's everything that I like about the Atto 3, but it's smaller. And where we live at the moment, parking's an issue, so a smaller car makes sense. A lot of the roads are kind of smaller, so it doesn't make sense to have a big car. And I love the Atto 3 experience, despite the negatives that I talked about. And I think a lot of those negatives would also be true for the BYD Dolphin. I'm not saying that those things would not be true as well, but the main reason is just the smaller size of the car. It's also cheaper, and the fact that it's just more practical around town for parking and driving down those smaller roads. I kind of talked a little bit about planning your trip with regard to recharging, and there's a lot more to think about than what I've touched on here. So if you want to learn more about how to recharge the BYD Atto 3, some tips for planning your trip, and my own experiences, I cover everything that you need to know, everything I learned in this video right here.